Hi, and welcome to this module on Principles of Interior Design. This is part of the course Introduction to Interior Design Studies, and my name is Amanda Davis. I'm full-time faculty at Portland Community College here in Portland, Oregon. And this has been developed as part of an effort with open education resources to make this education open and available to everyone. So why study the principles of interior design? To evaluate interior design, to create interior design, and to develop an interior design vocabulary. That interior design vocabulary is particularly important when we discuss our ideas, elements of our imagination, and that way we're able to speak very specifically to what is going on in our heads and how that might apply to an interior design project. Lists of principles differ slightly from source to source, so let's outline what I'm going to be talking about in this module. We will focus on balance, symmetrical, asymmetrical, and radial balances, emphasis, gradation, rhythm, scale, proportion, variety, and unity. First, let's talk about symmetrical balance. Symmetrical balance is created when there is an element of demarcation and then same elements on either side of that line of demarcation. Some refer to that line of demarcation on a surface or in a room, or whether it's two-dimensional or three-dimensional, as the focus head. This is an example of symmetrical balance in furniture creation. This is a traditional Japanese cabinet called a tansu, and this one particularly was built in the Edo period in Japan. Concepts associated with symmetrical balance include even, paired, equal, and I might also add expected. Next, let's talk about asymmetrical balance. Similar type of cabinet, although this is a Sendai tansu created in Japan. And you can notice that the top of the cabinet is decorated in an unbalanced or asymmetrical balanced composition. Concepts associated with asymmetrical balance are dynamic, oblique, or tilted. Next, let's talk about radial balance. Radial balance is balance felt with relationship to radii, or we might think of spokes on a wheel. In particular, this house, designed by John Lautner in Los Angeles, California, is created using radial balance. Oftentimes, we feel balance from multiple directions. We might feel a movement as those spokes on a wheel turn in our viewpoint. And interesting enough, John Lautner was one of the last architects to study under the famous American architect, Frank Lloyd Wright. Next, let's talk about emphasis. Emphasis creates a hierarchy of elements. So it's not just one component for emphasis. We might see multiple components that fall into the secondary line or tertiary line of hierarchy as also parts of emphasis. In this interior by Luis Barragan, a Mexican architect in Mexico City, designed in 1948, the emphasis could be the Roja Mexicana, bright pink wall. It could also be seen as the staircase as emphasis. Oftentimes, emphasis is created with a component that there is one of, and then the supporting characters in the hierarchy of components, there's often more than one. Next, let's talk about gradation. Gradation really is about movement. movement from small to large, saturation of color to less saturation of color. I've chosen to show this staircase because a staircase is inherently gradation. It's movement from one level to another. And in this particular staircase, located in the Roby House in Chicago, Illinois, one of the early examples of Frank Lloyd Wright's architecture, residential architecture associated with the Prairie School residential architecture movement, is Frank Lloyd Wright has increased the sense of gradation because the last two stairs are bigger than the upper stairs. And so the sense of movement and the sense of going from large to small and low to high is increased. We get a sense of movement and a sense of sequence. Next, let's talk about rhythm of repetition. In this case, this interior, designed by architect Zaha Hadid in Vienna, Austria. This is the Library and Learning Center at the University of Economics. We get concepts of expectation and a pattern of similar elements. So not unlike gradation, we get a sense of movement, but that movement is felt through a series of similar elements. Next, let's talk about alternation. This is an interior also found in the Roby House, built in 1909, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright in Chicago, Illinois. Alternation is really, you can imagine, as a pattern of A and B, A and B. Large, small, large, small. In this case, light fixture, space, light fixture, space. Or pilaster, window, pilaster, window. Or, looking at the ceiling treatment, large rectangle, slender rectangle, large rectangle, slender rectangle. Let's just talk about scale. Scale, we get concepts where we are looking to create or mediate emphasis. In this home, designed for himself, the Mexican architect Luis Barragan created this huge, almost outsized window for this living space. The result is a lot of daylight and a view towards a very pastoral, peaceful foliage exterior. Because this window is so large, Barragan is using scale to say something about this space and the uniqueness of this space. He's also chosen to furnish the space with a very large screen, you can see on the left, large scale furniture. In fact, the chair right in front is a traditional Mexican chair called a butanque chair, and the scale is then set up as a relationship between parts. So large scale screen to relate to the large window. Next, let's talk about proportion. And I think it's perfect that we look at a shaker interior for proportion. Shaker communities found in western Pennsylvania and Ohio were known for their quality of furnishings and a building style focused on humble aesthetics and also a real focus on use and materiality relating to parts to the whole. Let me explain. So the beds are small and relate to the size of the room. The cabinet in the corner also relates to the size of the room. The cabinet at the foot of the bed also relates to the size of the furniture. And one could say that everything in this room is in relationship to each other, is in proportion to each other. So the concept here would be parts relate harmoniously to the whole. Next principle, let's talk about variety. In any interior where, let's say, we want to know more about it, it's interesting and worth talking about, I'm going to go out on a limb and say there's some level of harmony. and that harmony is created in terms of variety or in terms of unity. In this case, this Victorian interior is creating harmony through variety. Concepts include diversity of elements and what we would call a reserved unifier. This is a traditional Victorian parlour in New Zealand, Auckland, New Zealand, and these Victorian parlours were popular in Western interiors in the United States, New Zealand, Australia, England, and Western Europe. The Victorian parlour was a place for Victorian homeowners to show off their things, to show off what they owned. And if they were able to travel, they would show objects that they had procured on their travels. If they weren't able to travel, they would show off components and objects that they were able to purchase through trade. And the unifiers that were kind of creating harmony in these spaces were often very reserved. So in a Victorian parlor like this one, we expect to see different furniture styles, different patterns, many different types of textiles, and many different types of woods. So this is a really good example where the different furniture styles, there are many, and the unifier, I would say, is that light brown or beige color connecting the rug to the window treatments. And last, let's talk about unity through, or harmony through unity, a very strong unifier or series of strong unifiers. This is a traditional Islamic interior found in Morocco in the 20th century. And the furniture is all similar, of the similar style, even the same type of chair. And that perimeter seating, of which Islamic interiors are really known for, really creates a cohesive element we might call a datum, spelled D-A-T-U-M. And a datum is a unifying gesture that runs horizontally in a space. So we also see the repetition of textiles, and the creators of this space are really using strong unifiers to create a sense of unity, harmony through unity. Thanks for joining me in this small video on principles of interior design. All of the photo credits are here if you would like to see more of them. And everything created in this module is free of copyright infringement, or does not have any copyright infringement, and is open to all viewers. Thanks for joining me.